Hi, I'm Maia Mazurkiewicz, the CEO of PZU Foundation, and we're gonna be talking today about the first report, such a report on the dreams of Poles. Do they dream? What they are dreaming about? If the fears and dreams are related, stay tuned.
Welcome to the Visegrad Insight Podcast.
We bring you global experts on the future of democracy, security, and economy.
The leading voices from Central Europe and on Central Europe.
Hosted by editors of Visegrad Insight.
Powered by Republika Foundation from Warsaw, Poland.
Hello, it's Wojciech Przybylski speaking, editor-in-chief of Visegrad Insight, and I'm recording this on the morning, Monday, 27th of October. Before we go into the interview with Maia Mazurkiewicz about the recent report, the interview we recorded yesterday on Sunday at the Freedom Games in Łódź, Poland, I wanted to bring your attention to 3 points we raise in the weekly outlook. The weekly outlook on democratic and economic security that covers countries from the Baltics, Central Europe, Visegrad Group, Belarus, Ukraine, Moldova, and developments in Bulgaria and Romania as well, sometimes with a view also on the Western Balkans and other partners in Central Europe, is raising a number of interesting points, but 3 are of special attention, in my opinion. First, we're looking at the geo-economic gunfight, and we ask the question, who's really afraid? After Trump's decision to impose tariffs on Russian oils, Russian spokesperson, the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, called it economic warfare. Well, hello, welcome to the reality of the past years. But Russians are crying loud because it hurts. According to estimates, it hurts $1.8 billion monthly of revenue that has stopped. And the reports came signaling that China state oil giants like Sinopec have been halting Russian oil buys. It is quite natural to expect certain measures by Russia to circumvent those sanctions. It is expected that India might be of help, as well as the shadow fleet operations might be tried, at least they might be tried by Russia, with risky measures like repackaging of the cargo on the open sea, with potential natural disaster in sight. Nevertheless, a circumvention will never be as effective as those sanctions Trump has imposed, and the European Union followed. So you can clearly see how much it hurts Moscow and Kremlin, although it is not going to bring about the immediate result of a ceasefire or a peace, but it also shows how geo-economic warfare is really an important toolkit of today, exerting strong pressure on a player like Russia. The only question is, why so late? Mr. Trump has been delaying this decision, and it took considerable effort from lawmakers to pressure the administration, and also a certain recurring moments of humiliation when Mr. Putin has been cheating on Mr. Trump's promises he delivered earlier, before Alaska, after Alaska. Mr. Trump probably, hopefully, finally sees through the tactics of the Russians and don't want to take insults anymore. So that is something to hope for, but of course, geo-economic warfare hits hard across Central Eastern Europe. When we speak about local population, Hungarians are going to pay the price probably the most, because of the political decision taken to be fully dependent on Russian oil and gas supplies in the past, in levels, in percentages that make this country very vulnerable. So when the European Union wants to have a new repower program, phasing out energy exports, imports from Russia by 2028, Hungary is frantically searching for an opt-out, searching for a way to delay this moment, simply to save themselves, their political strategy, which me coming from Polish perspective that invested so much to diversify from Russian gas and energy sources means, shrug a shoulder and wait and see, hoping that Hungarians will use the benefits of interconnected gas and energy market across Europe and will be able to cut off the dependency, whoever is in power after also 2026 elections. Another point, speaking of Poland, there has been a party congress in Poland, actually two of them over the weekend. Mr. Tusk has announced the official name, not new really, but an official name of his party to be now Civic Coalition instead of Civic Platform. The coalition was already the brand of a number of smaller parties attached to Civic Platform. Now the official name comes Civic Coalition, and one of the parties has dissolved. Its members joined Civic Coalition as a party members. Now on one platform, clearly showing the political strategy of Mr. Tusk, who wants to dominate in this camp, in this part of the political scene. On the other hand, we have seen Mr. Kaczyński speaking in Katowice, also with a crowd attending his speech, and then dwelling into policy ideas, discussions on policy ideas that PIS might bring in. It did not sound well in the media. There was a lot of hate and a lot of blaming on the government rather than positive agenda that PIS has been known for to use and employ for winning strategies in the past. But interesting words from Mr. Kaczyński came when he called against corruption in Europe, and he called for stepping against autocrats. And I just don't know if that was a slip of a tongue or his intentional reference point to Mr. Orban. Well, that is to be seen, and we also warn, there is a caution in our writing about how to read Mr. Kaczyński's words. It's not the first time that he will be trying to address the centrist voters with a honey trap message for actually quite an autocratic agenda that we know from the past. In other news, there were political rallies in Hungary, 1956 celebrations, which will be 70 celebrations next year, are usually bringing a lot of Hungarians to the streets in Budapest and elsewhere, but specifically in Budapest. Viktor Orban used this moment to deliver his usual, nothing new in bashing the West and calling for peace, while Petr Magyar was the only one who actually called out on the Russian tanks and called out on the responsibility of Moscow in crashing the Hungarian 1956 revolution. That doesn't stop Robert Fico from considering joining the Patriots alliance set up by Mr. Orban, Mr. Babiš, after he has been expelled from the Social Democrats in the European Parliament. More on political news in Central Europe, I think it's worth to recommend Donald Tusk interview from Sunday Times, when he declares he has heard from Zelensky that Ukraine is ready to fight the war for another 2-3 years, with potential no end of the war inside, as Russia wants the war to be the dominant political context of how they operate domestically and internationally. Tusk says about, he warns of sweet illusions in Britain, especially if people thought this is not their war. It is very much their war, he says, because of the technology that is available to Russia and the proximity of missiles in Kaliningrad and in Belarus, with nuclear warheads that may fly over the channel and hit British targets. So, this is about realizing for the British audience specifically how much this war is about all of us in Europe, and not just the far-fetched fronts of Ukraine-Russian border. More news. from yet another perspective, but very much linked to the war in Ukraine and the aggressive posture by Russia. There are border tensions again around Estonia and Lithuania, with new developments where the Vilnius Lithuanian International Airport has been closed, specifically because the balloons, meteorological balloons, or what it seemed like, went over the border in big numbers, threatening the airspace. Apparently, they've been carrying one cargo, the typical cargo Belarus has been always exporting, but now with new means of transportation, which is cigarettes. Cigarettes have been one of the key elements of propelling the funding of the KGB operations, especially in the NATO EU countries. There is more in the Weekly Outlook, and I recommend anyone who hasn't subscribed yet to the Weekly Outlook to buy out the monthly subscription. It's not that expensive, or a yearly one to support us. And check out what's new. You will also receive an email with the bullet point newsletter every Monday. But now let's tune in to the dreams and hopes and fears of Poles, as reported by the newest production by the PZU Foundation.
Hi, if you're enjoying this episode, why not subscribe to Visegrad Insight? This gives you access to all our latest content online, as well as to our live and online events. You can use our special promo code for Visegrad Insight podcast listeners to get 35% off. Just go to visegradinsight.eu, choose a yearly subscription, and apply code Visegrad35. And now, back to the podcast.
Maia, thanks for agreeing to be on our podcast and to speak about the newly published report, so far only in Polish, but I think of a great significance both to the region, Central Europe, and all of the Western Alliance, because it touches upon the dreams and fears of Polish society. So tell us, why have you even commissioned and produced this report?
Wojtek, thank you so much for the invitation. And indeed, it's now only in Polish, but we're going to be translating that into English, so stay tuned. Well, we're living in the times of uncertainty, in the times when the fear and threats are all over the world, pretty much. And they are affecting the way how we think, the way how we behave, the way who we vote for, and basically also our psychology, the way how we feel here right now. And I was thinking of doing something, and with the PZU Foundation, we've been thinking of looking at dreams of Poles, because that's something that's really nobody tackled in this way, right? We are talking so much about the fears and threats that we forgot that that's exactly the moment we're building our future on. And if we're building our future on those fears and threats and on the defense, how better can it be? So we want to look in the future with our dreams.
So in other ways, this is your response to strategic communication deficits that you observe, where majority of the reports, and I know a number of those, and you probably know all of them across the world and across the region, are amplifying the disinformation message in a way. They are focusing on exactly what our opponents and rivals want us to focus on, which is fears, threats, instead of asking why are we doing what we are doing, what we've been doing so successful with democracies, with our resilience, and with our defense posture.
Exactly. We need more positive narratives, right? We need to focus very, very much on this positive message, and we still dream. Because the question that we've been also asking ourselves is like, in the times of fear, uncertainty, threats, do we still dream? And there is like pretty much every single Pole is dreaming. It's almost 94% of us that is saying, yes, I'm dreaming.
This is exactly the point in which I have to ask, on behalf of the global audience, so keen to know about, Polish mindset that otherwise in the world is known as fearing Russia. The fear of Russia is basically our brand in the global perspective. But if you say this is not the most dominant perspective of polls, according to the opinion polls, what then people in Poland think about thinking about the future?
So in our report, the kind of word war didn't really been visible that much, right? And we've been doing the qualitative and quantitative research, and it was more about the way how we named it. It was about living the simple good life, and I think that's beautiful, and I think that's exactly what is the key of this report.
And then this simple good life means many things to different generations of Poles. This is, of course, that is perhaps a normal distribution across many other countries. But just in the Polish case, how would you classify the differences between the ages or age cohorts in Poland, according to the report? How people aspire, how they change over time, and why?
Well, we are seeing those changes. I think that if you're asking why, one of the things that we're seeing, especially in the differences in between young people, so like from 18 to 24, in accordance to the older generation, is a moment of their life when they were living in pandemic. And yes, we are in here when we did the research 5 years after the pandemic. We're having a war on our eastern border very much, but still what they are fearing of as well in terms of the fears in accordance with dreams and how they are related, because they are very much related, and that's also what we are saying, is relationships. It's love.
And this is especially visible in the youngest generation and in the oldest generation.
That's very much, it's almost 5 on 10, it's almost half of the young population that they are dreaming about the relationships. And it's because they were lonely, right? And they are also seeing a lot of AI, social media. They are lacking this relationship, so they're dreaming about it. And of course, then I think it's very usual, right? And you wouldn't be surprised that they are, of course, dreaming about a good job, right? And then if you're going to the older generations, they kind of a bit more stable. So they are not dreaming about the job, but then they might be dreaming about travels or about a good house. That is giving the simple life. And what is very interesting as well is that they are very much focusing on how they want their life to look like.
And do we know how they want their life to be lived? What is the aspirational dream? And what is not just a dream, but what is something they seem as a promise of living a democratic Poland and democratic Europe in the future? How they imagine this is happening?
I would say the one word that we see in here is the community. And that's also something that we are talking about polarization. And yes, we are more and more polarized also because of Russian threats. But what people really want, they need a community. They want a community. They want to have friends, family, they want to have love. And that's very much visible across all the people. They, of course, want to be healthy as well, right? So that's definitely something that they are saying is, yes, good life is being healthy, having people around me, having a space where I can live and obviously feel they're happy and be able to travel, right? So it's pretty much a dream that every single one of us has. And when I first look at the report, I wouldn't say that I had expectations, but probably I was like, okay, do we dream of Nobel Prize, right? And one of the reasons why I was thinking about the report and I wanted to measure the dreams of Poles was because I was discussing with the Nobel Prize laureate a year ago. And we were talking about his dreams, right? And he was having dreams, and because of his dreams, he managed to got something in physics that then was rewarded as the Nobel Prize. So I was thinking if people are still having those aspirations. And
do they?
Well, probably they do, but not that much, right? So that's very much in Poland. I would say that we want this kind of calmness, right? So we are not dreaming about the Nobel Prize, but we are dreaming very much that we're gonna have a calm life. And I think that's also a response, and it's also like kind of the way of building our resilience.
One outlier in the statistics that I found interesting, coming to the points that you raised, is that people aspire for more time to have this relationship, more free time, that they don't have enough. And people, according to other statistics in Poland, people in Poland are overworked and overburdened with the type of duties and the life request of them. And at the same time, they're dreaming of more money. So, it doesn't seem that this is very compatible. I don't say this is bad to dream of all of these things, but it seems that there is a strong tension within the society where you try to balance these things, and you're in need. You dream of the free time of the community, but at the same time, you want more money and you want more free time. That kind of shows to me a picture of Poland, the most successful country in Central Eastern Europe in terms of the economic growth model. Currently also declared one of the top 20 global economies and aspiring to join the club of G20, group of 20. But can society bear with that? Is it a creative tension, or is it something that hollows us out and I think, drags us and pulls us down?
But I have a question if it's a tension, right? And if it's also only for Poles, because what I'm looking at in general in the geopolitical space, right? If we're talking firstly about the Western world, we are having this tension to work more, be better all the time, and that's giving a big pressure as well. And we, of course, still have this notion that the more you work, the more money you make, right? But at the same time, we are right now living in the times when AI is supporting us in the job creation. And a lot of people are right now discussing if we should have perhaps 4 days work instead of 5 days work, because AI will be able to do a lot for people. So isn't it actually a response that is not a tension? It's a dream of people that in a few years may come true. And they may have still more money because AI will be doing things for them. They will be working. And they may have more time because they will not need to work 5 days a week.
Let's see if that dream comes true. And let's talk now a little bit about fears that you have identified in the report.
Hello again! If you're enjoying this episode, make sure to give us a rating. It really helps boost our platform and invite more guests for you, our listeners.
Are there any fears you found surprising, or anything that we should also speak more openly to the world about the perspective Poles have? I mean, the report is about aspirations. This is about dreams. But I think it's quite telling that the end of the report says that every dream, every aspiration has this black mirror partner in sight. So against those dreams and hopes and aspirations, and so reassuring that over 90%, 95% of Poles dream and have dreams, what it tells about the type of fears that we are sharing in Poland.
Well, I think that those fears are very, in general, global. I don't think that they're very specific for Poles, right? Those fears that we are identifying in here, it's loneliness. So it's very much, again, accordance with the AI and also social media and the way how we look in at the relationships right now. It's dehumanization, that we also fear of what is going to happen when the AI, going to change or develop in the places. But of course, we identify as well one of the fears, there is a war or the political crisis. But I think that we're also seeing that in the other societies. So I think that we are much more similar than we think that we are. And we are so much focusing on being different, and we want to be different. But at the same time, this report is showing that both fears and dreams are very much depending as well on our humanity.
I want to ask now a political question. It's a no-brainer that any political strategist to find the lowest common denominator will focus on the fears, will exploit them for political communication, will polarize as a strategy. And yet your report and not only in the sense of the content, but as such is a political manifestation that there is a hope for better politics or a different types of politics. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you say, and you address this global question of polarization, and you address the question of fears, how much room there is for different types of political leadership and strategic communication that is relating to dreams and hopes?
There's very much of them, because we're looking at the emotions, right? Every strategist and every person that's working with communication understand that everything they communicate needs to kind of get to people's heads and hearts, and mostly hearts. With the algorithms that we are having, it's about our hearts, it's about our emotions. And if we are having too much fear that we are in right now, because that's something that, especially in Poland, right? Russia is very much pushing forward, but also when we are building resilience, there is this fine line of how to talk about resilience and fear and how to manage that. We need to find emotions that are positive, and they are equally important for people. And what we are saying in here is that for all the people, no matter what their age is, dreams are giving their hope. They are giving them motivation as well, and they're being put more like a goal. They're giving them sense of life. And as Frank already had said, sitting in the Nazi camps, he was saying exactly, what kept me alive was a sense of life. And dreams are giving the sense of life, and they are giving hope. They are giving this enormous, big emotion that every single person, if they are thinking about making a change in the future, needs to build on.
Well, that shows how much space there is for political leadership that is not much there in the Western world, at least. But it makes me hopeful, for sure, hopefully our listeners as well. I wanted to ask you one other question, again, more reflective one. Dominique Moisy once wrote an essay to counter Huntington's narrative of the divided world by some cultures. And Moisy said that the world isn't really divided by culture clashes, but emotional clashes. There is a geopolitics of emotion. And he has found that among those who are going hard, going for terrorist action, they're revanchist in their political strategy as communities or as societies under, non-state actors as well. There is a lot of looking to the past and seeing that the dreams have failed, and looking to the past with a perspective that we once were great, we're no longer. And we want everyone else to suffer. To me, that perspective sounds like long Putin elaboration of their historic past. And we find it also around Europe. There is another perspective that is the perspective of many liberal democracies, that we are fearful of the future. This, I alluded in the beginning, we have a lot of these reports about how people are fearful about the past. They want to hold on to the present. How long perspective do we have in order to attain what we think probably Central Eastern Europeans have had, looking into the future, hoping about the future, what the future might bring, and that Moisy identifies primarily in the Southeast Asia, that these societies can even take some sacrifices, the sacrifices we know from the transformation in Poland and in Central Europe, because they believe it is a better world because of these hard decisions. How much do you think we still have that in Poland and maybe in Central Eastern Europe?
Well, first of all, we also identified the dreams and fears for the future. And one of them is kind of a dream of coming back to the past. So that's pretty much exactly this, right? But the way how I look at it is kind of nostalgia, right? And it's exactly this thing that if we're talking about the culture and where we are right now, and if we're looking at our information space, when we are bombarded by the information, we are not having a time for ourselves. It's hard for us to sit and dream, because this research wasn't easy to do, especially in the discussions with people, right? When we were talking about that with the researchers, they were saying it was we need to really kind of like structure the conversation and the dialogue. Because in Poland, we are kind of much more introvert, right? We don't want to share those dreams. And what we discovered as well is that we are rather not talking about those dreams with even people that are closer to us. So it's something that we need a time to sit down and really have a time to dream.
Yeah, and so that everybody can really embrace an old slogan, I have a dream.
Exactly. And it's good that they are saying, because they are exactly saying I have a dream when they think about it and they find a space for it. And I very much believe that we really need to push people to have these dreams. And if we're thinking about building the future, right? And we are all building this future here and now. We have in this report the way how people want to see this future.
I'm all for imagining futures. I mean, we run the Strategic Foresight project at Visegrad Insight Foundation exactly to shape the structure for a discussion about the future, so you can feel a bit more organized in having a collective perspective that, you know, helps you speak up about these things that are otherwise not very comfortable. I mean, we were trapped for so many decades and centuries by you know, lack of future. The future is ours. I think the agency is there. I wanted to congratulate you for the report, for doing this. It definitely needs an English language translation, so we'll be looking forward to having that in a discussion and comparison maybe with other Central Eastern Europeans and other European Union countries, which also need these dreams, and politicians also need to help formulate those dreams in order to lead. Anything you would point to in terms of the report, when to look for the English version, or how to find the report on the website?
Yes, you can go onto PZU Foundation website and you can grab the Polish version, and we are working on it to have it as soon as possible. I'm sure that in November we will have it in English.
And you can be sure we'll also comment on that and put the link in our weekly outlook for our subscribers. So stay put. Do follow Respublika Foundation. Maia Mazurkiewicz, PZU Foundation CEO and co-founder and leader of the Alliance for Europe, a civil society group that does strategic communication at its very best. Thank you, Maia, for being with us.
Thank you so much, and well, keep dreaming and let's make these dreams possible.
Fantastic.
And that's all from this week's episode of the Visegrad Insight Podcast, bringing you the leading voices from Central Europe and on Central Europe.
Make sure to subscribe, and we'll be in touch next week.